Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us for this event. I'm Donnell Turner, the director of the Career Center, and navigating a career in the workforce, as most of us know, is not an easy task for some African Americans. At times, people of color have had to alter their speech, their appearance, and their behavior to keep from being stereotyped. Over the course of my career in staffing and recruiting, I've been the only black man in the entire company. And some of us deal with subliminal race based comments, slights, and behaviors that make you ask yourself, am I crazy? Did they really just say that to me? Some of us here have experienced quite a bit of this, and part of my goal for this event is to bring these issues to your attention as you prepare to enter the workforce. Why? Because if no one talks about it, it's just going to continue to be an issue that gets swept under the rug, and because racist structures look like they're normal because we're so used to them, we can find ourselves asking, is this really racist or am I just being sensitive? Is it really racist or is it just all in my head? So, as director, the Career Center is committed to the lifelong career and professional development of LaSalle University students and alumni. Because my goal is for every student to transition from LaSalle University career ready, I also want to see them thrive in their chosen field. And that includes being prepared for these types of issues that we're discussing tonight. So, because being black in the workplace has finally become a trending topic in the wake of the global reaction to the deaths of unarmed black American citizens, and with organizations now declaring that Black Lives Matter, I believe it to be an opportune time to assemble this panel to address the topic and provide some takeaways that I hope will help you successfully navigate a career in the workforce as a person of color. So without further delay, I'm pleased to introduce Curly Amy, Deputy Chief of Human Resources and Director of Employee Relations for the Office of the State Treasurer and Receiver General, Dr. Crystal Porter, Vice President for Enrollment and Marketing here at LaSalle University, and Candace Thomas, Assistant Vice President, Talent Acquisition at Eastern Bank. And before I turn the mic over to our moderator for this evening, I want to make a few notes on housekeeping. The event is being recorded, so all but the presenters have been placed on mute. There will be time reserved at the end of the session for questions, so please use the chat to request to be unmuted or place your question there for the panelists. Now I'll turn the mic over to our multicultural student president, Josephine Santiago, who will moderate tonight's discussion. Josie?
Thank you so much, Donnell, and thank you all for coming. It's so amazing to see so many people excited and all your faces on without cameras. So that is really nice. I wanted to start off, like you said, we're going to dive right into what it means about being Black in the workplace. So shortly, our panelists will have time to reintroduce themselves, talk a little bit about their background and their experience being Black, especially being Black women, powerful women in such high positions. So without further ado, Curly, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. First off, good evening, sorry. I would first like to thank Donnell and Joycey for inviting me to be part of this panel. I'm very excited to be here this evening and to talk a little bit about my experiences and hopefully share some insight and some helpful tips to individuals on the call this evening. So my name is Curley Ami, and I do work, as Donnell said, for the Office of the State Treasurer and Receiver General. I've been in the human resources field for about 20 years now in a variety of different positions. And currently right now, I'm the Deputy Director of Human Resources and Director of Employee Relations. And my affiliation with LaSalle, it's been through invitations to career fairs and being able to, speak to the students there, talk a little bit about some career opportunities within the State Treasurer's Office, but really to encourage people to think about public sector as a meaningful career and an employer of choice. So that is my introduction. Thank you again.
And then Crystal Porter, would you like to go?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Crystal Porter, and I am having internet issues this evening, so hopefully you all can hear and see me okay this evening. Um, I am currently the Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing at LaSalle University, and I've been here going on a little bit over a year, where I started with the Graduate and Professional Studies and have now expanded my role with the institution. So I pretty much still oversee the Graduate and Professional Studies, but am involved with a number of other departments, such as marketing and enrollment.
And then our last panelist, Candace.
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor and always a pleasure to speak to the LaSalle students. I am an alum. I actually came to LaSalle to actually recreate my career, and that's where I started to begin my journey into HR. So in 2014, I had worked in elementary and secondary education for about 6 years. And was actually tired and looking for a change, and decided to enroll into the Master's of Science program in management, and met Mr. Darnell, and he helped me get my first HR job. And it's kind of been history ever since, and have accelerated in my career, have actually speak to some of his students, and always more than willing to, talk about my experience in human resources and in the workforce in general.
Perfect. Thank you guys. So I do want to talk and ask you guys a little question. And then after, while you guys are speaking, members, or audience, I should say, if you guys have questions, you can send them in the chat, write them private, message me, whatever you guys are more comfortable with. And then we'll have time to answer questions at the end as well. So first is, I would like to hear from the panelists, experience a time that you've encountered subliminal race or gender-based comments or other slight in the workplace that you could describe that stuck out, that's kind of made a lasting impression. And then maybe how a takeaway from it and how you move accordingly in the future. So whoever would like to start is fine. Okay, how about Candace? Would you like to go?
Sure, I was unmuting. I was moving very slowly for that. So I think for me, I have a unique perspective. I wouldn't say that I directly have been impacted by race in the workforce, but as a recruiter and as someone that supports an organization's goals or their outlooks or helps to manage relationships with external and internal candidates, what I do hear is their opinions. What I do feel that I hear a lot is people's biases, whether it be implicit or direct biases on how they view the workforce and talent. That's sometimes where I struggle. I've had situations where hiring managers feel that in order for them to hire diverse candidates, they feel that they need to lower the requirements or the standards. I've heard comments where they believe if there isn't they believe that diversity will impact the candidate pool. So if whatever I want to say majority race is enough, there's no need to have diversity, whether it be thought, outlook, skill set, anything of that nature. So I feel like that's what I encounter the most. And sometimes that's the most disheartening part of being a recruiter, when you listen to someone's thoughts on someone they don't know and on a piece of paper that they read. And a lot of the time I do spend time to kind of ask, well, let's talk about this. Why do you think this? Why do you believe that? Why do you believe a bachelor's degree is necessary to perform this job? Why can't we take someone with a high school diploma? The person's been out of the workforce for 2 years. Why don't you think that they can get back in the workforce and work and be a hard worker and contribute to goals and things like that? So, and even with age, this person's an older individual, they're 20 years in their career. Why would we want something young and fresh and vibrant? So sometimes I feel that's the hardest thing about dealing with the job, and knowing that I'm hearing the biases that are coming out. And it also helps me to support a lot of my clients in a better light, to educate them, one, on let's not be discriminatory, but two, let's talk a little bit about why you think this. Let's look at the current workforce, and especially with being in a global pandemic, a lot of people were impacted pre-COVID, and now since COVID, a lot of people have been impacted. So how do we look at hiring and looking at your departmental needs in a different way? So that's something that I've kind of deal with a lot and also support currently.
Thank you. Thank you. I definitely agree to that. It's hard to maneuver, it's hard to factor in things that we can't physically. We were just talking about this in critical race theory presentation. But yes, thank you for sharing. So Crystal, would you like to go?
Sure. So the example that I'm sitting here mulling over, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. My original aspirations were to work in professional sports. And so a good amount of my experience is in sports. I went on to get 3 degrees that have sport in the title, along with 2 that do not, and was able to get a job as a professor of sport management, and eventually did become a chair and assistant dean of a program, not at LaSalle, at another institution. Again, so hear what I'm saying. I worked in the industry as well as got all the credentials, but yet had a number of faculty and supervisors that challenged every move that I made. Although my teaching evaluations were stellar, I got all my students internships, you know, till this day, still help them out professionally. You know, I took a lot of hits in that particular position where my counterparts had never worked in the industry. They may have had 1 degree in it. You know, so it was one of those, I will make the assumption, I'll put the dots together of what was going on, why I was being challenged in that particular role. But, you know, it was one of those things that it didn't matter how many credentials I had or how much work that I did, it was never enough. And that to me was very much, you know, in my face every day, that it didn't matter how I put this together. I was always gonna not hit some imaginary mark. And so that's the example I'll share right now.
Thank you for that. And last but not least, would you like to go, Curly?
Yes, thank you. And I echo everything that Candace and Crystal has shared. I had some experience with those things. I want to talk a little bit about, I feel, working in environments where, like Donnell said earlier, being the only Black person in that particular team or group or department, and having to be that spokesperson, and always having to be like the expert that people look to in regards to anything race related, or if there's anything in the news or anything that's happening, as with the expectation that you're able to explain and give guidance as to what's occurring or what people are thinking about. So I think that's like an added on pressure of having to explain or give people insight to some of the challenges that people of color experience just in life in general, but then in the professional setting and in academics as well. I think one of the things that was really a comment that was made to me when I first started out in the HR career, my HR career, early on, I was in, it was a tech industry. And so I was working with a colleague of mine. We were working on a recruitment position to fill. And I was told by this individual that, well, he was always questioning what I was doing, the candidates I was bringing to the table. And then he was giving me advice on how I should track candidates that were of a different race. And I was just like, but why would we do that? Because that's distinguishing something specific about them that could be held against them. So why would we in any way, shape, or form identify what their race is or their gender or anything like that? And so I wouldn't do what he was saying. And so in the end of it, he told me that I need to, basically I was there due to affirmative action. And so that's why I was in the position I was in general. And basically I should just take directive from him as to how to proceed, because I'm not knowledgeable enough to provide any insight to that. So that was something I felt insulted, one, but secondly, having to prove myself and always feeling like I have to prove myself, always be ahead of the game, always forward thinking, and constantly trying to be, to stand out, or to just, and sometimes I could feel like I'm doing too much, but then I feel like that's the level I need to bring my game to in order to be recognized, in order to be respected in my field, and just in the areas that I'm in at all times.
Thank you so much, Carly. I definitely relate to that. So we do have some questions that came in, and this is particular to what it's like for us as students going into the workplace, where we've been on Zoom for so long, where, you know, like Donald had mentioned, in the midst of a lot of companies claiming Black Lives Matter, and we are about, you know, the Black community and how that can lose in translation with what they really represent. Excuse my... So the first question for the panelists is, how important is it for young professionals of colors to find a mentor? And I think this is important, especially for us students. As being the president of MSU, we find a lot of the times, and especially being a part of a PWI, so a predominantly white institution, where are our mentees? Where can we find that support to guide us? Because we all come from different backgrounds, and we may not understand, being in a new environment, in a new world, what that means. So kind of that cultural shock for us when we go into an institution like LaSalle University. So we can start this time with Crystal, if you wouldn't like to start.
Sure. So I have a multifaceted answer. So first, yes, it's crucial to have a mentor. But then there is also another level, two other levels. You also need a sponsor. And then you also need a circle of advisors. So a mentor can get you into certain networks, and obviously, you know, be someone you can consult with. Now, a sponsor, they're going to be the ones to open the doors for you and get you to the table. And that sponsor more than likely doesn't look like you. So that's where you do have to be open to all kind of people that are willing to help you. And then your circle of advisors are, again, people that are within your industry or within your major that are steps ahead of you that can give you real advice. So I find it crucial. You have to talk to people to understand the playbook that is already in play. You know, all of this is a game that you are entering. You know, none of this is new. And it's important that you use as many people as possible to listen on who they're telling you the players are, how they act, what they respond to. And then you have to make the call on how you're going to adjust, you know, so no one's saying how you have to react, but you can listen and really see how they responded to how people ahead of you have played the game, for you to determine the steps that you take. So again, it's even more complex than just simple mentorship. It's having pretty much a full team behind you to be able to make the moves you need to make.
Thank you. Candace, Carly, do you guys have anything to add?
I just want to add, yeah, I think Crystal just hit it on the head. So she just actually advised everything. And I think I want to emphasize the importance to understand that your allies may not always look like you. So you have to be open and embrace everyone that's willing to help and to mentor and provide advice. And also keep in mind that you don't always need to look for a mentor in the particular field that you're interested in. Have a variety of people, because their experience in the business and the professional setting, however, they have something of value that they can add to your experience, add to your future, and add to what your intentions are moving forward. So just be intentional and know that. And another thing to also keep in mind is that not everyone's going to want to be your mentor, right? Not everyone's going to want to be that person that's guiding you. Take that, accept it, and then move to see who else is willing. So don't let that close the door for you. Don't get shy. Don't get disappointed. Just know that people have things on their plate or their lives, and that they can't take that on. But be open to everyone that is able to add some value or information or anything that they can add to assist you in your path.
So I love what Curlay and Crystal, they hit it on the head. What I would add, and I'm going to answer the question that was asked in the chat, where to begin. And this is for anybody. This isn't, in particular to individuals of color. This is for anybody. Start with networking. You got to put yourself out there. These connections will not fall in your lap. Some will, but the majority of them is you putting yourself out there. If you know that you're a business major or you're in marketing, are you a student in any of the local associations? How are you getting engaged in the communities? How are you volunteering? Are you putting yourself out there? That's how you're developing your network, especially now in some of these spaces. Are you, getting on research projects? How are you engaging your population? That's where I would start. The other thing is, just like I would tell anybody who's getting ready for a career fair, have like a 30-second elevator speech. Hey, I'm such and such year. I seek to do this. Here's what I'm looking for. I see you specialize in this. I'd love to connect, maybe have some coffee, maybe shadow you one day. How can I start to develop a relationship or learn more about you? I think that's a good way to kind of start the conversation. And then over time, most people are willing. People rarely say no. It may not be a long-term commitment, but in the short term, it's a good way to get out there and get engaged. So I think that's a good way to start.
And I actually just got a good question through DM saying, through direct message, I'm sorry, saying, what would be the hardest obstacle that you guys had to overcome in your profession? And I will give you guys a little bit of time because I know a lot of you have a lot of experience, and you've done a bunch of different fields. So you can pick one and just kind of state what it is you were working on, specifically what kind of team you're on, and then the experience that led thereafter. And then maybe like a key takeaway again.
I'll go. My biggest thing is I'm a career student and an overachiever. I'm actually a second-year PhD student working on a degree on conflict resolution and analysis. I have some strong long-term goals, but I think imposter syndrome is my biggest thing. No matter how decorated I am, and I can agree with Crystal where I am in the 3%, and sometimes that's not enough. And I had to, during COVID and more recently, say, I deserve to be where I am. I worked hard to get exactly where I am, and I'm going to embrace this space. I'm not going to let the nerves, the anxiety, the fear to get in the way of what I work for. And I learned how to be present and to sit and enjoy what I've worked for. I find that us candidates of color, us students of color, we're always in this rat race. And we never sometimes sit back to enjoy the fruits of our labor. So I think knowing how to be present, knowing how to pat yourself on the back, like, yeah, I did this. I got this. I got myself here and I earned this. And then most of the time we earned it. Nobody gave it to us. We earned it. We fought blood, sweat, and tears to get to where we are. And we have to embrace that and be empowered by that. And lastly, what I would say is always be willing to give back. What I've learned over time and from one of my undergraduate institution, one of them was to always give back. And with that, the ability to keep giving, it keeps giving hope over time, especially with the individuals that come behind you. One of my mantras for life is, I'm only as good as the people that come behind me. I'm that effective at that point. So, definitely for sure, embrace where you're at, love where you're at, and be able to know that you've worked hard and you've earned your place and no one can tell you otherwise.
Yes, thank you. I definitely, Crystal, Curlay, either one can add to that if you'd like.
Okay, I guess I'll build off of that. Probably the biggest lesson I had to learn is that I am not my job. That it is crucial that you don't buy into that rhetoric that we are a family. We are always going to be here for each other. No, this is a place of employment. And when number lines are not adding up and decisions have to be made, your name can be on that line as one of the people to go. And it is crucial that you know who you are and the value that you have, and that you can rebuild somewhere else. But if you start buying into the rhetoric, which is very easy to do, it is very easy to do, you become overly dependent on your place of employment. You are looking for it to feed your soul versus going out and being in the community and being of service and getting involved in things that you personally should be involved in. And so that is a hard lesson, because we spend so much time talking about our passions and all that. And it's okay to work your passion, but understand where that line is, where this is work and I can also do my passion on my side time as well.
Awesome. Those are great answers, Candace, Crystal. So just to add, I think also finding your voice and being confident in your decisions and ideas and suggestions and thoughts. I would find myself early on in my career always questioning myself, right? I would give information, or I would do all this backleg work and have provided to the individual, and I would not get that recognition. I would not get recognized for the hard work that I've done, in the ideas that I brought to the table, but yet someone else would be getting the acclimates and being recognized for that. So knowing that you have a voice, you have ideas, you have thoughts, you have contributions that are valuable to the team and to the individual. So not hold back and not shy away, really speak up and say, I have an idea, and this is what I think, and this is, here how we could devise it. So having that voice, finding your voice and being comfortable with your voice and being confident in what you have to bring to the table, and to add to the value.
Thank you all. That was very insightful. So our next question is, knowing what you do today about navigating a career in the workplace as a Black professional, what advice would you give to your young out of college self? So like I've stated before, a lot of us are currently in workforce or going to be going into our lifelong careers. So what is some advice?
For me, starting off, I think one of the things to be is to, how should I put it, to not shy away from what you're passionate about, right? To go after what you want, to be intentional about what you're looking for, and be selective. Don't just take anything because you just need a job. Really be selective. Make sure that employer, that branding, that mission, the value speaks to you and it's reflective of you and has you in mind. Because I think for me, it was starting off young. It's just, I just need a job. I just need a paycheck, and not feel as if I was adding to anything or anything was being added to me. Look for someplace that's going to invest in you as you are investing in them. So making sure that they have a professional development program. What is the training program? What is the diversity, equity, inclusion program? Like, what are they doing in these areas to feed back into me? Because you're going to be giving a lot. So what's coming back to fuel me to be passionate and to be present?
I guess I would say, set hard goals and concentrate on the process. And what I mean by that is like who you're becoming to try to accomplish that goal. That actually is the more important part to focus on rather than the actual goal sometimes. And actually one of the biggest lessons that I learned later on is to get confirmation on how you're being evaluated. Because you can spend a lot of energy on these jobs doing work that at the end of the day, no one actually really cared that you were doing it. And you're wondering why no one's patting you on the back. And so you need to continuously confirm and reconfirm, this is what matters at the end of the day to the organization. And then, finally, that opportunities really are in the unideal circumstances. It's usually the stuff that people are kind of shying away from, and you need to understand why. And it's usually the hard stuff. And not saying everything that is hard, or unideal is the opportunity, but you got to kind of figure it out, and I'll give the example where I did work in sports. And it makes a great story right now, and that I became one of the youngest employees in the NBA, but I was at the Denver Nuggets during the 90s. And if any of you are old enough to remember that era, they were literally the worst team in the NBA. They had the longest losing streak ever. So I tell the story now and everyone's in awe, but I was at a really hard place of employment, having to sell tickets, to the worst team. But it was an unideal circumstances that taught me a lot about myself and got me on the road. And like I said, it makes a great story now. So sometimes you got to search for those hidden gems that really can pay off for you in the end.
I would say, just to kind of tap on both Curley and Crystal, is celebrate the ambiguity. One thing I will tell you, as someone who's had to career change a couple times and recreate myself, don't be afraid of the gray. Even if you set a hard goal and it changes, embrace the change. Be able to be agile. Being agile in life, I think, is one of the strongest characteristics anyone can have, because no matter what life throws at you, you will land. And I think sometimes we stray away from what's ambiguous or what's hard because we can't map our way out. I firmly believe, like in life, we have the keys to lock on all the doors. We just have to show up. And sometimes we don't even show up to see what happens. And we shy away because, like Crystal said, it's not ideal or it's unknown. I've had to navigate a lot of spaces that my network and or people around me have never done. And once I showed up and was present, I was like, wow, this was a lot easier than I thought it would have been. But it took me a while just to get to that place. So as you guys are starting out in this journey of life, change is going to happen, ambiguity is going to come. It's not going to be perfect. But as you continue to show up and you continue to go with the flow, it always ends up working out for your good, always. So that's just one tip from me.
Those were my favorite takeaways. I put them in the chat. You guys are hitting the spot on some of the things that I think definitely come up in question, or we get lost in looking at the bigger picture. So I like concentrating on the process, intention, embrace the change. So our next question is, what are your experiences as a woman of color in the workplace? How do you think your experience are different from those of white women or white men? And I really like this question, especially because of our audience. Most of you people are working in diverse teams and environments. So I think it's kind of important on both ends, seeing, your non-people of color, seeing people of color's point of view and vice versa. Because I think that's kind of where we get all these issues, is because we can't understand the other side, or we can't validate people's feelings in their experiences. So if anyone would like to kickstart that question off. Crystal, would you like to kickstart that? Oh, Curley.
No problem.
Okay.
I often get misinterpreted, because I try to be a positive person and an encouraging person and a motivating person as kind of a pseudo Oprah. And what I mean by that is that you can come in and tell me all your issues and I'm going to sit there and use my day to listen and cry. I don't do that at all. And I have attributed that to being a Black woman, where Oprah is now not so much of a thing, but back in the day, I know, people are like, we got our own personal Oprah right now. And no, you don't. Like, probably one of the biggest things that can set me off is actually crying in front of me. I actually can't just sit there and wait till you end to then say, okay, so what are we doing next? Just where it's business to me. And so Black women, I do not feel can turn on the waterworks and get what we want. That tactic works for some people in the workplace, and I'm aware of that. And so it doesn't work with me. And that's one that I have watched throughout my career. Unfortunately, a number of white women be able to move ahead and get things because they were trying to hit emotional spots of people that they knew they could affect. And that one hurts. And, and so, like I said, as I continue to move up, it is part of my personality as well, not to be that way, but it doesn't work with me, where it is all business when you're around me. leave the emotion at the door. We're here to accomplish certain goals. So that would be my answer.
Great. Thank you, Crystal. I'll answer. So I am fortunate to be currently employed with the State Treasurer's Office and being under the leadership of Treasurer Goldberg. One of the things that during my interview process with her that she basically tasked me with was I want to look at my workforce and I want to see those that we're servicing on a day-to-day basis. She said, I'm tired of sitting at a table and all I see are white males. I want to see women. I want to see people of color. I want to see diversity. And that's what I'm tasking you with. So to be able to work under that kind of leadership, it sets the tone across the board with managers to understand that this is not just a word that we throw around and try to make sure that, yes, we had a few diverse people on the pool of candidates. So we've done that. No, they're intentional and making sure that happens. It hasn't always been like that for me, where people were embracing diversity. For me, like Crystal said, I felt like I had to juggle my temperaments, right, in order to not be labeled a certain way. Always having to come off to be a welcoming, smiling face and not be labeled, she's angry or she's aggressive or all these kinds of terms that are just out of place, right? It puts you at a pause when people want to interact with you. So I think that is something where you have to be conscious of checking yourself. Okay, I can't react in that way. Like I could write an email, like I'll get an email back where it's just very rude, it's very short and curt, and I'm about to hit them right back with that same type of feel. But then I got to pause and be like, okay, Carly, you can't. Good morning, how are you? Thank you for your response, and then try to put it in a professional way so that I do not come off to look in a negative tone. So I think that's something that I'm constantly juggling and going back and forth on. Where at times I feel other individuals in the workplace don't have to be cautious. They don't have to sugarcoat things or have to be, be kind or just to be aware of how they're answering things. So I think that's something I constantly have to manage and understand that my voice and my reactions and how I feel towards things, even though they're being labeled in these ways, these are authentic ways that I feel. This is how I feel. This is how I'm feeling in this moment. And I need you to understand. And maybe using the appropriate words. And I also find another thing is use your vocabulary is a big thing too, right? If you use slang or you use any other type of vocabulary, you're looked upon oh, she might not be educated, or we don't know where she's, So that's another thing. I find when I'm interacting with other colleagues or other individuals that are of color of a different race, there's a different type of dialogue, there's a different type of conversation that I'm having with them compared to white colleagues or white individuals, because I have to be cautious. I have to mold myself to a way that's accepting. And I think that is something that's has always been a challenge for me. But it's something that I'm working on. But again, I have to be cautious of how I'm looked upon based on how I react or how I speak or any gesture that I might do.
I definitely agree with both Crystal and Carly with sentiments in general. Definitely had always been, even to present, sort of the cube or the space where everyone wants to come kind of decompress. What I would say for me that I feel that Black people often face as being the voice of our race in a company, that's one of the things that frustrates me the most. And just for some history purposes, my family's Caribbean American. I'm first generation American. So my plight and my family's journey is completely different from African Americans or Americans native to America. So in undergraduate, so I went to Endicott College, which is a predominantly white institution, being at LaSalle, being in some of these spaces where they're like, so what happened to you? I'm like, well, my family comes from the Caribbean. It's a little different. It's a lot different. I can't really speak to the plight. I don't have the same experiences. I don't have the same understandings. But aside from that, it's often, I don't see in other races where they go to you as the expert, where they go to you as the point person, where they go to you to want to embrace everybody and love everybody. If we're angry and we're upset and we're mad, let us be that. Don't come to me to now teach the company on how to move forward to support Black people. Pay some consultants to do that. You know, there's a lot of things that I find in some spaces where yes, it's nice to connect, but connect with us consistently. Be supportive with us consistently, not because of George Floyd, not because of this, not because of that. And sometimes that's where I find the biggest struggle is for Black people within the workforce, but also being the teacher to the leaders. Again, there are professionals that can do that you can pay, that can come and set some strong framework and get you guys to where you need to go. And it's not my job to teach ignorance of leadership. You know, so those are some of the things that I feel like we struggle with that a lot of other races either don't or not as much, especially in the last couple of years, have to face.
Yes, that was amazing. Thank you guys for sharing. So I do have one last question, and I think it goes, you guys have already talked about a little bit of advice for colored students going into the workforce. So now I think I want to just switch the question to, what was your biggest support, whether it be throughout your whole career experience, whether it be in college and high school? What is a support system that you had that really stuck out to you? Whether it was part of a club organization, a team of some sort, that you say, okay, I can kind of contribute who I am to them in a way.
I'll go. Sorry. I think one of the biggest things was being able to find, like I said, allies or colleagues that you can trust to help navigate the new scenery or the new area that you're working in. And it's important to feel comfortable to be vulnerable, right? To say, I need help, I'm struggling, I'm challenged. And I was lucky and very fortunate at each of my places of employment. I was able to have those allies and those people that were to encourage me or to guide me or to say, you know what, you're messed up. Like, you gotta try to turn this around and figure out, let's like sit down and try to figure out. So holding me accountable as well, right? So I need individuals that believe in me, trust in me, but also hold me accountable for when I might go astray. And I was able to find those allies and those people to aid and to encourage me through my path in my career. So I've been very fortunate to find that. So if you're able to find and identify an individual that could be that go-to person for you, and maybe it's not within your department, it could be in a different department, it could be someone that you worked with before or anything, but just finding that support, like we talked about earlier, a mentor, your sponsors, you know, and someone that just provides you with guidance, right? Just finding that, because that is so crucial in your success, because at times you're going to feel as if you're alone and you need that guidance. And so finding that support system is critical.
It's the person, mine is a person, and he is no longer with us. He passed away, but my former president at the institution I used to work for, he was very much my sponsor. That's when I learned about what sponsors were. He didn't wait for me to ask. He put me at tables, and that's when I saw it in action. You know, that's where I was like, okay, this is how the game is played. My biggest memory was we were doing something with city council, and he had asked me to join him, you know, where I'm thinking I'm just going to sit next to him or in the audience, you know, and watch him do his thing. And, you know, 15 minutes before the council people walk in, he's like, you're giving this presentation. That was the push, you know, where he wasn't waiting for my permission, where he saw it in me and just made me do it. And from that moment on, you know, that's when I was like, okay, you know, I get it. And I get it that certain times you don't ask for permission. The right people are going to put you in the positions you're supposed to be in. And so that's why you got to be on the lookout for those people, and, you know, pay attention if people are trying to set you up, because they will do it very nicely if you're the one for them.
I'm trying to think. I definitely agree with Crystal and Carle, and I've had similar experiences with individuals who support in that aspect. I think I've been blessed with being able to see the fruits of my labor manifest. And a lot of that goes back to me saying being comfortable in ambiguity and also change. If I didn't take a leap of faith a lot of the time, I wouldn't be where I am today. One of my, I say, fondest memories of my educational experience was I got an associate's degree, and there was a scholarship that was a pathway to Endicott College. So first generation American, first generation college student, living in Boston, you know, Dorchester born and raised, and got shipped out, you know, and I was working too. So at this time I was working, had a job, full functional, you know, city life, train, bus, didn't really need a car. And I moved to Beverly, Massachusetts at about 23 years old. Didn't know what was going to happen, didn't know what I needed, didn't know anything, but knew I got this nice scholarship to pursue my education, and definitely had to navigate that space, which was uncomfortable. I couldn't get hair gel. You know, there were basic needs that I could not get that I was accustomed to having my whole life, but I fought for it. I developed a network. I put myself out there. I also had the support of leadership that I could call on and go to say, hey, here's what I need. Here's what's going on. I used to unfortunately make some of the leadership uncomfortable when I would say, I'm your diverse student. But I didn't mean it in the sense of diversity as that way, but I am the student on the diversity scholarship. And I would always be corrected. And I'm like, no, but I don't mean it in a negative way. This is, you know, I want you to remember who I am and why I'm here. So I think being comfortable in the unknown, that's where a lot of the beauty happens. I'll be very honest with you. And being okay with not having control. A lot of the situations I've been in, it's because I didn't have control and I just took a chance. And thus far, it's gotten me in some great places. I haven't regretted it, but also some wonderful allies thought about things outside of themselves. You know, this individual or the former president had a commitment to the community and always wanted to see people, everyone, to have an opportunity. So he had developed that pathway for individuals in the associate's degree program that I went into to actually come on that beautiful campus and learn and be educated. And it also expanded my horizons. It also allowed me to be engaged in a way that I would have never, because of where I was born, because of what I was exposed to and where I came from. So, you know, being an ally or being a support, if you have to give, if you have time, if you have, you know, coffee or opportunities just to connect with someone who doesn't look like you, who doesn't come from the same spaces as you, who don't have the same opportunities as you, you are definitely setting someone up for success, but you're also paving the way for them as they're navigating the workforce, their education, and a lot of the spaces that we're in.
Thank you so much, Curly, Crystal, and Candace. You guys were so informative today and very helpful. We're opening up to just an open discussion. If you guys want to openly ask questions, write it in the chat for any one of our three panelists, for Donald or for I, if you just have any general questions. And Mr. Wilbur, you are unmuted, so you can go ahead.
Yeah, I can't change it's Steve. I couldn't change my name.
Oh, okay. Steve.
It's all good. It's Steve. Thank you all for doing this. This is awesome. I've got notes. You guys rock. I want to be an ally, and I feel I am, but I want to be the best ally I can be. I was wondering if the three of you could expand on what I can do to be a more visible ally without being an obnoxious ally, right? Like, I don't want to be that overbearing, like, okay, we got it, you know? Thank you.
I think for me, what I would say is probably it's going to be uncomfortable, right? But I think joining, if there's associations, are you a student or you're a student? Okay, yes. So I'm sorry. Okay, I would say joining different types of events that is catering to a particular group of students, because being able to be involved or just hearing some of the conversations, some of the strife, some of the struggles that they have, and then that way you could relate, that way you could understand, that you can provide suggestions or advice, and then also just, you know, if there's like a mentor program, or you could be mentored with a freshman coming in, or you know, I know sometimes they let you volunteer in the inner cities or towns surrounding your school. Like that's another way to give back, right? So going back and starting when they're young and investing that time, and it just continues to just build your ability to relate and to be able to feel comfortable about becoming that ally, but just making yourself available in the spaces that are available to you to learn and take away from, and then to be able to just relate and for them to see, because then you might have people reach out to you and say, you know, Steve, thank you so much for being here. Like, we really appreciate your support in this. So just being present and being supportive and just, yeah, just being present.
And I'll just add on to that because that's spot on. When you are in spaces that you know others cannot get into, bring them along as best you can. And you know, it's one of those, once they get there, they have to navigate the room on their own sometimes, but at least if you can get them in there, that is the hardest part sometimes for people of color. It's just getting that access. And you know, that's one of the beauties, I think, of going to an institution that does have a diverse group of people, because you can find people to go into areas they've never been into, both ways, you know, so you can be exposure on both sides. You can have that.
I would say really quickly, and I kind of touched on this when I talked about how individuals of color tend to have to speak on behalf of their race. I think being a good ally is doing your own personal work. Being able to understand what's going on around you so you can better service and better support the people who you want to ally, right? And I know sometimes we do things unintentionally, or we're doing it because it's the right thing, but sometimes behind it, there's guilt or there's shame or there's unnecessary emotion that when you're engaging with these individuals of color, that kind of comes out. And it's not intentional a lot of the time. It's not like you're doing it on purpose, but it just happens. So I would say being an open ally is also doing your own work and understanding why you feel so passionate about whatever the cause is, group is, and the support, so you can best use your resources and best use your ability to support them through whatever they're going through, or even if it's elevating them.
Thank you so much. So one more question from the chat. And honestly, I can relate to this a lot. How do you guys deal with the shock of microaggression? Because I feel, being in a position of leadership, I hear a lot of students have a problem with this. One, because maybe it may be their first time ever experiencing a microaggression, and they're just like, whoa, what just happened to me? Why would that ever happen to me? Exactly that, what we talked about, intent versus impact. Was that their intention? Things like that. So if you have experienced it and you have a takeaway, how does one go about dealing with microaggression?
I don't think there's a perfect answer. Obviously, I get angry like everyone else. I do have a therapist that I have, you know, for a variety of reasons, sometimes have to store it up and let it out there. Not saying that's a perfect answer, but it's one that I have had to use over the years. And the other thing is, I know who I am and I know my worth, and I don't need anyone else out there defining me, you know. So although that is happening, at the end of the day, I have to look at who's given authority and who's given opinions. And I only pay attention to things that have authority. So it's a life's journey, to start developing that kind of confidence. And again, I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt, or, it's not going to cause you to be emotional. But if you can get back to that space, wait a minute, I know who I am. And that's where that agenda part comes into play. I got to get back to business. I got things to do. It makes it a little bit easier to shake it off. I'll say that.
I would also say, for me, more than anything, a lot of microaggressions are projections. So half of it has nothing to do with me ever, majority of it. And I can accept that, and I know that in that point in time, so I don't take it personal. But I sometimes see it on how do I now deal with this person moving forward, seeing that this is how they're projecting. So unfortunately, sometimes I have to own it and deal with this person in a different light. And especially as an example, if it's one of my clients, how do I best support this client so it doesn't happen again? Or when can I have an opportunity to address what was said, what was done, or if I need to address it at all? Sometimes it needs to be escalated to above me, and sometimes I can deal with it directly and it doesn't happen again. So never taking it personal, because like Crystal said, I know my worth, I know my value, I know what I bring. So I'm not worried, but then it allows me to see this person in a different way. So how do I now manage the interactions I have with this individual moving forward?
Yeah, I just echo both what Crystal and Candace said. Exactly, just like Crystal said, it angers you, it saddens you, and the fact that you're being subject to that, just again, but understanding who you are, what you bring to the table, and what your value is how you can get over it. But then also, like Candace said, being able to address it and understand, how do I move forward with this individual and interact with them, but always keeping yourself a professional and at your worth. Do not ever bring yourself down to the level that you've seen or been exposed to. But if you feel it's something to escalate, do escalate it. Don't shy away from speaking up for yourself, or whatever had took place, so that it could be corrected and addressed.
Again, I can't thank you guys enough. You guys were 3 amazing panelists. I know I definitely had a lot of takeaways from this. Steve did a lot of note taking, so I hope everyone else did as well. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to speak up now. But other than that, Donnell, if you would like to say any final words.
Just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We've had 55 minutes of sage advice and open and honest conversations and just interactions from everyone. So thank you all. Curley and Candace, I've called upon you numerous times, and you've always been there. And Crystal, I just can't say enough about you. So thank you all for everything that you've shared tonight. I want to respect everyone's time. It's 5:59, and we want to end this at 6. So if there's anything else, if you have any other questions you want to pass, you would like either Josie or me to pass anything along to our panelists, please do email us. But other than that, have a good rest of the night, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Good night,
Let's
everyone.
give our panelists an applause, please.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right.